I know my parents love me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through. I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your own home, and how we move forward collectively while addressing the racism that is being perpetuated.
He took cues from his icon, basketball star Allen Iverson, who he said wore his blackness like a suit of armor. And teenage Kaepernick wanted cornrows to match. He's getting what roles, his mom asked?
Oh, your hair's not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug.
Your mom said that to you.
Yeah. And those become spaces where it's like, okay, how do I navigate this situation now? But
you know, every time Colin Kaepernick is in the news, every time that name comes across the wire of a headline, I cringe a little bit, because Colin Kaepernick's real secret, his real identity, is not black person, it's not civil rights activist, it's not former NFL player, it's not woke activist, progressive activist, anti-cop activist. It is victim. Yes, that's right. This person who was adopted by a wealthy white family, raised up to the point where he could become a double threat, aka he had the chance of going to Major League Baseball or the NFL, actually ended up in the NFL, was the starting quarterback of the 49ers when they went to the Super Bowl, is in fact a victim, and you should feel bad for him, because Colin Kaepernick is the victim of evil white racism, because America, I don't know if you know this, is in fact an evil white racist country. However, this latest take from Colin Kaepernick is a bridge too far. Even from some people that are his supporters, they think it's a bit ridiculous. And remember, these people did not jump off board when Colin Kaepernick tried to free Mumia, somebody who undoubtedly murdered a cop in broad daylight. There's multiple witnesses and forensic evidence proving it. Nobody in the local community supports this guy. That was a point where they stayed on board, but this has been a little bit too far, because Colin Kaepernick recently decided that it was appropriate to accuse his adopted parents, who were in fact white, who took care of him his whole life, of evil white racism, calling them evil white racists, because, oh my god, aren't white people who go out of their way to care for a black child that isn't theirs actually just evil, white, and racist? Now, we're going to get into this. We're going to laugh at this. We're actually going to go over more of the interview than other people are talking about, because there's other parts that are ridiculous, but this video is sponsored, so let me chuck it to the sponsor, then we'll bring it back over here, talk about it on the other side. We are at war, and there's a recession. Two things that officials in our government are not that interested in talking about, but the thing is, just because they won't speak of the real issues doesn't mean you shouldn't be concerned about it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't think about protecting your hard-earned savings and retirement from absolute disaster and the fallout of the war and of the recession. This is one of the reasons why I'm a big believer in gold and silver, because it's a real tangible asset that has proven to be a hedge against financial disaster. So what you need to do is go over to noblegoldinvestments.com or call them at 877-646-5347, talk to an expert, and talk to them about a precious metals IRA. And if you move over a qualifying dollar amount for this month, you will be gifted an American Eagle 1/4 ounce gold coin to add to your collection. It's a beautiful gift. I love it. I love holding on to gold and silver, and you will too. Hedge against inflation, ward off the looming disaster, noblegoldinvestments.com. So Colin Kaepernick has published, and I use the term published, not written, a graphic novel about his life, about the struggles that he had to go through, and how evil white racism was everywhere, and he had to use his blackness as a shield in order to fight back against evil white racism, evil white racism.
I love how you depict yourself in this book, not as some big shot hero, but as a shy, insecure high schooler like we all were.
And for those of you who are unaware, Colin Kaepernick, his mother, put him up for adoption. The reason why is because she couldn't take care of him, and by the way, she's tried to get involved in his life now currently, but obviously Colin Kaepernick's father was also not involved in his life. So then he was adopted by a white family. They raised him, they fed him, they did everything for him, they put him through school, they ended up getting him all the training and assistance that he needed in order to make the NFL, and as I said before, they also put him in baseball, which he was a pretty decent pitcher at, and probably probably could have made the major leagues as a pitcher. So they, by all accounts, did a good job. And funnily enough, they supported him down this road of woke politics where they just accuse America of being terrible and all white people of being evil white racists. And that's hilarious for a number of reasons, one of which is that his mother, his biological mother, was very publicly critical of Colin Kaepernick kneeling for the national anthem, thinking that he should stand up and be grateful for the country that he has because it gave him such great opportunities. So you have these wealthy white liberals that take care of this kid. He turns out to be an activist, and for the most part, he's kind of gone soft on his parents. But the thing is, black activists are very uncomfortable with the idea of white people adopting black children. You can watch segment after segment where they talk about how this unbridled act of generosity is in fact evil white racism. So it was only a matter of time before Colin Kaepernick decided that he was going to declare this evil white racism. Now, to be clear, I am of the belief that if you go out of your way to adopt somebody else's child, if you set up your life in such a way where you're able to do that, then that is an undoubtedly decent thing, regardless of the race or ethnic origin of the child. And the reason why I say that is so you guys out there in the audience know that I'm a normal person, know that I'm not a crazy person, and know that I am totally not on the side of Colin Kaepernick, who is really mad that his parents didn't want him to have a hairstyle, which was obviously due to evil white racism, and had absolutely nothing to do with parents not wanting their kids to just have any hairstyle haphazardly, and is totally not a normal interaction between parents and children that are biologically related, much less adopted kids. It was all evil white racism. In fact, they adopted Colin Kaepernick for the sole purpose of imposing the evil white racism on him, but Kaepernick used his blackness as such a shield that he's fighting back against that said evil white racism. But again, don't take it from me, take it from Colin Kaepernick himself.
And teenage Kaepernick wanted cornrows to match. He's getting what roles, his mom asked?
Oh, your hair's not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug.
Your mom said that to you.
Yeah. And those become spaces where it's like, okay, how do I navigate this situation now?
So yeah, Colin Kaepernick as a child says he was a giant fan of Allen Iverson. Allen Iverson had cornrows. Colin Kaepernick wanted cornrows, according to this story. I'm also going to add that I don't believe most of the aspects of this story. The parents said, no, they don't want you to wear them like that. But then the evil white racism came out and they said you would look like a little thug if you wore your hair like that. And that's something that Colin Kaepernick was scarred by for decades and decades, and something that is really problematic, and he needs it in his book.
But it also is informed why I have my hair long today.
The grown-up version of Eve wanted to go back in time and give young Colin a lot of hugs. And I was really moved and saddened by the level of kind of self-awareness that he had to develop at a very young age without a lot of guidance.
Now, to be clear, it would be perfectly fine for Colin Kaepernick's parents to tell him not to wear his hair in any way for any reason. If they said, hey, you're going to look like a little thug if you wear your hair like that, or it's not professional, or both, I would be totally fine with it. I would be on board with the parents because the parents get to make that decision. And if Colin Kaepernick wanted to grow up in a black household where they would allow that, I got news for you. Many black parents also feel the same way about hairstyles. In fact, I looked at the Breakfast Club thing that they did on this because I was looking for a particularly bad take, and typically they have those bad takes. And even they say that, yeah, my dad told me the same thing when I was growing up, and we weren't adopted by white people.
It also is informed why I have my hair long today.
Now. The reason I said it, my parents are black, right? Charlamagne jokes and says I'm Dominican. No, my parents are black.
Allegedly.
But when I got cornrows, my parents said the same thing.
Exactly.
They said you look like a little thug out there, but take them cornrows out, you're going to get yourself shot.
But I also want to make this 100% clear that I don't believe Colin Kaepernick's account of the events. Maybe he did want to have cornrows at one period of time in his life. Maybe it was after Allen Iverson. Maybe his parents did say no because they thought it would look unprofessional. But the added extra thing that they called him a thug or said he would look like a thug, even though totally fine, I wouldn't be against them saying that or suggesting that, I just don't buy. I think Colin Kaepernick is making this up because what Colin Kaepernick tends to do is make things up. He tends to lie. So I think this is an exaggeration, and typically as a parent, you don't have to give multiple different excuses for your kid and why you don't want them to do anything. So Colin Kaepernick's claims, I don't buy them at all whatsoever. I also think it is particularly nasty, even if this did happen, for him to try to profit off of smearing the good name of his parents, his adopted parents, that chose to love him, chose to bring them into his household, and all that. But Colin decided that this is what he's going to go for because he needs to make that money, and this is how Colin Kaepernick makes his money. He already made a bunch of money as an NFL quarterback, but that is done due to the fact that his skills have declined to a certain extent where he can't participate anymore. He's 6 years removed from that. So now he has to desperately say, well, my parents were actually evil white racists, the adopted parents, who chose to adopt me and raise me to the point where I could be such a success, and complain about evil white racism essentially for a living. And by the way, I totally understand that if Colin Kaepernick wrote this graphic novel, and in this graphic novel, he told the story of his parents taking care of him. He told the story of his parents providing love and all these accepting things for him. You know, similar to the Michael Orr story, you know, they made the movie The Blind Side about it, where this woman takes him into his home and all that wouldn't get the attention that he's looking for. Nobody would buy that book. The reason why this is generating headlines is due to the fact that he has declared his adopted parents, who he says, I know they love me, as evil white racists, evil problematic white racists. Isn't it so bad how their white racism is? And of course, the net effect is maybe people will hesitate when adopting kids of another race. Now, there are some people out there, specifically black activists, that say that they're totally fine with that, but I will also note that these very same black activists are not adopting black children of their own, so the net result of this is fewer black children being adopted, which I don't think is a good thing. Now, another reason why I don't believe Colin Kaepernick's account of events is because clearly and obviously, if you did a 23andMe on this guy, they would be a lot more European than you think, because Colin Kaepernick does not look like a black American. In fact, one of the reasons why I believe he's actually growing out his hair into an afro is to enhance his black features, because if you look at his childhood picture, if you look at him now, the dude looks Persian, and this is a phenomenon that we see in the United States of America time and time again, where you have people who are half black or a quarter black or whatever, and essentially they lean into their black side extra in order to garner the privileges of being a black person and thus having that victim status in the United States of America. Now, we've done videos on this channel about this phenomenon. Remember, we talked about this girl who was half black who made videos about how her father was an evil white racist and how she was happy that her father was dead because her father was such an evil white racist, all he did was become a billionaire and pay for everything that she could ever want, take care of her whole life. Wow, isn't she a victim? She was the child of somebody whose net worth was around $2 billion. This is another person who, again, half black, half white, who leaned into that black half in order to get victim points, even though clearly and obviously this person is incredibly privileged. Now, I don't know anything about Colin Kaepernick's biological father or what kind of mixture or whatever, but again, you're looking at somebody choosing to lean into the black identity despite the fact that he had a very privileged upbringing in comparison to probably me or you watching this video, but definitely compared to a lot of black people in the United States of America as a whole. And again, while I definitely believe, and I've always said that Colin Kaepernick shortened his career in the NFL by kneeling for the national anthem, he was only going to be in the league for a couple of years longer as a backup because his skills at that point in time had deteriorated to the point where he was not going to be a starting quarterback at all. And considering Colin Kaepernick had huge financial demands for the teams that would sign him, it would appear that financially, getting a Nike contract after he was out of the NFL, getting this book deal after he's out of the NFL, getting a Netflix deal after he's out of the NFL, he made the best financial decision for him. He also got a settlement from the NFL because of them blackballing him and all that. So Colin Kaepernick has benefited dramatically from leaning into his black side, which was a good financial maneuver for him as his skills deteriorated. Remember, in Colin Kaepernick's last couple of years, he was the worst passing quarterback in the NFL, bar none. 2 years before he left, he was by far and away the lowest ranked quarterback in the NFL, and only because his running was #1 in the league did he escape that title, and he ended up being third from the bottom in his last season in the NFL.
Do you still want to play football professionally?
Absolutely. I woke up this morning before our events, trained 5-6 days a week. I'm still up at 4:30. I go get my training in. That passion is still there, and the ability is still there.
So despite the fact that Colin Kaepernick is saying that he's still in shape and he drills every day and all that, and he's still ready to play football in the NFL, that is just not true. That is not how skill sets work. And remember, we're 6 years removed from him playing at the NFL level when his skills were seriously deteriorated.
The former NFL quarterback who once led the 49ers to the Super Bowl was known in high school for his baseball. The pitcher even had major league interest, but he bucked public pressure and followed his heart to the gridiron.
There were a lot more black people in football that I was like, I found some community here.
Now, I also find it funny that Colin Kaepernick had a lot of major league interest, and by the way, if you watched him on the NFL field, this was often referenced as he was playing football whenever he threw a pass, when they would say Colin Kaepernick's fastball, because he was actually known as quite a notable pitcher. And considering the current market in Major League Baseball for pitching, and Kaepernick did have some talent, I can convincingly say that he likely made a tragic mistake. Because unlike the NFL, and Colin Kaepernick got more than enough guaranteed money, let's be clear about that, all Major League Baseball contracts are guaranteed. Unlike the NFL, where obviously the wear and tear on your body, specifically if you're a run-first quarterback like Colin Kaepernick was, is much higher, you can actually have a much lengthier career in Major League Baseball, assuming no serious arm injury, which, by the way, is a big assumption to make because there are often very serious arm injuries. So Colin Kaepernick, if he was more talented in baseball than football, likely would have made more money in Major League Baseball than he did in football. But again, he claims that he made this decision because obviously he thought that the NFL had more black people in it, and that's what he went for. I don't actually believe that. I think Colin Kaepernick made the decision because he was a quarterback, so he could be the center of attention, and being a starting pitcher or a closer does not grant you that same level of media hype.
And then that passion is still there, and the ability is still there.
No, it is definitely not there. Your training looks soft. I remember your little audition for the NFL where they were going to give you a legitimate tryout, but you wanted to make a stunt out of it, so you demanded that all these teams show up within 20 minutes, an hour away from the designated location that you were supposed to do the tryout, and it was an absolute embarrassment, and you wore the Kunta Kinte shirt. Kaepernick, you don't want to play football. You want to pretend like you're on the cusp of returning to the NFL, but you're getting up there in age, and obviously your skills were deteriorating while you were in the league, so the idea that this is going to happen is just not a real thing. On top of that, one of the worst things that could happen for Colin Kaepernick is that we have a number of people who are either partially black or fully black that have kind of taken over the league as the next generation of quarterbacks in the NFL. It's kind of hard for Colin Kaepernick to make the case that the NFL is full of all these evil white racists when all these prominent new up-and-coming quarterbacks, or a huge portion of them, happen to be black quarterbacks. Turns out, if you play well, you make the team, and people want to win in the NFL more than anything, and Colin Kaepernick was just not the key to winning. I always said if he was way more talented, the Niners would have eaten all the negative press and all the negative attention associated with the kneeling and kept him on the field, because the NFL is all about winning. It's just Kaepernick's annoyance to talent ratio was far misaligned, and he completely misjudged that, or maybe he didn't, because again, he's had a huge financial windfall ever since he decided to become this woke activist.
He hasn't played professionally since the 2016-2017 season, when this single gesture sparked both solidarity and outrage.
Why did you choose that day and to protest in that way?
That's actually something we're going to dive deep into with the doc that's coming this fall.
Look, Colin Kaepernick sucks, period, point blank. He is unfortunately a part of this phenomena that we see in the United States of America of people growing up in privilege, having a lot of advantages of other people, and then somehow developing a hatred for the country that set them up for such success and becoming more notable due to the fact that they have that hatred. And one need look no further than the Oscars as a perfect example of this. When that Korean guy won Best Director for that movie way back when, Parasite, if you listen to his speech and how grateful he was to be there and how much he loves Hollywood in comparison to the native-born filmmakers in the United States of America complaining about this country, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This happened again when that kid who was in the Indiana Jones movie won Best Actor, and he gave a very heartwarming speech talking about how his story was the American dream, coming from a Vietnamese refugee all the way to Best Actor. And you just compare and contrast that to all these American-born actors that complain and whine and cry and talk about how evil this country is, when they're quite literally at an industry award show that is put on television and considered this dramatic event. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of gifts to attend the Oscars, and they're talking about how evil and bad America is and how we're in desperate straits. But then you have people who have to actually earn their way there, who come from struggles, and they are appreciative of the country. Kaepernick was privileged to be adopted by a white family, and because he was adopted by a pretty progressive left-wing white family, it is unsurprising that he became an insufferable spoiled brat. That's what we're seeing from Colin Kaepernick. Make no mistake about it. But hey, those are just my thoughts. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. If you liked the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about Colin Kaepernick calling his adopted parents racist. Till next time.